Cliff, how are you, mate? Thank you for
Uh,
coming on the show.
yeah, no, I hope I get over this cold, man. And we have like the tail end of a hurricane coming through North Carolina. There's a reason why our hockey team is called the Carolina Hurricanes. But hey, I don't have to pay to fill my pool, so thanks for the rain.
How are you, man? How have you been? I know you had a rough few years there a couple of years back, but how have you bounced back? How are you feeling? Give us the lowdown.
I feel good. We're shopping my comic book scrapper around.
Beautiful.
Yeah, managed to. I partnered with this badass woman named Alex DeCampi, who's written a bunch of comic books. She's directed music videos, the whole nine yards. I find that I'm at my best when I have a partner with my creativity. I don't like working in a vacuum, right? Like, Gears was great because I had Rod Ferguson to bounce off of. I had Lee Perry, Chris Perna, that whole team. We felt like the Beatles back then. But so then I told the story of it all. So wrote my
Man, you're the
memoir.
master of plugging. We're 2 minutes in here.
Yeah, I got bills to pay, man. Um, and that's the thing is, I need to create, and I'm
Yeah.
happiest when I create. And I actually have I have a term sheet with a certain game studio to consider possibly making a new video game finally after all these years.
You're
Because
kidding.
yeah, no, I'm not kidding. After Boss Key crumbled and the internet thought it was fucking hilarious, and my dog was dying. That's my shrine to him behind me. He was my Australian Shepherd of 13 years, named Teddy. He was my Gears One like post divorce dog for my first marriage, and I went into a really really dark place. And but then I realized I need to tell my story. And at the time, my mother-in-law, during when COVID hit, wonderful woman, God bless her. She was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, and she never smoked a day in her life. She's just raised my forever person, and is what I like to say about my wife Lauren. And then we had to go back and forth to New Orleans and stay in the suburbs of Airbnbs of dubious quality, needless to say, because the hotels were all shut down and just sit there and essentially hang around at her house and basically watch her die. And so I had my laptop and I had my writing partner, Todd Gold, who wrote Little Girl Lost with Drew Barrymore. He recently did a Michael Richards, Kramer from Seinfeld's memoir, which I burned through too. And he just kind of was my Sherpa once again, going back to having a partner creatively, and then busted out that book, and hopefully it's selling more than 5 copies.
So do you think that got you through that period doing that along with your wife and
Well, they're saying better busy than bored, right?
mm,
And at the time, I'd been estranged from my mother for quite some time. Once my father died when I was 15, she went from being a loving, caring mother to a narcissistic sociopath. I bought my mother a car, and she looks at me and goes, "Well, Shaq bought his mom a house." And I'm like, okay, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. And I just walked away, and I learned that she died when I was in the suburb of New Orleans. My brother called me. She hit her head and didn't go to the doctor, and that's how Liam Neeson lost his first wife, right? Like that's what killed Sonny Bono. If you hit your head, you go to the doctor, like because you have an embolism or something like that. And I felt nothing but watching my mother-in-law, who kind of essentially became my mother in a roundabout way, really affected me. And I find that myself, I am at my best creatively when I'm like down, like when I'm depressed, like Vincent Van Gogh cutting off his fucking ear in an absinthe binge, right? And so, being able to just tell my story, and for those of you out there who have been able to read my book or haven't had a chance to, I just wanted to show myself as a person, talking about the things I went through when I was a teenager, my journey with Epic Games, and my first marriage, the fall of my first marriage, the affair that led to the fall of the first marriage, and everything in between. And there's been books written about the video game industry, but many of them come across as stereo instructions. And I wanted to make something that was deeply personal, that showed this side of me, that I am a person apart from the brash internet personality that I have, and the fact that video game journalists love to leverage that to make me look like the giant asshole that they think I am.
and you know that they just do that for the clicks, don't you?
Oh
I'm sure.
well, that was the thing is, I had said it in another podcast. If Microsoft was smart in regards to Gears of War, they'd bring me on as a consultant just for the PR alone, and which is fucking true. People be like, the Return of the King. I just like get a build once a month, play it, and type up some notes. I mean, it's all it fucking takes. And the rage bait. Not It's not even clickbait anymore. It's fucking
Rage
rage
bait.
bait.
Yeah.
Yeah, the rage bait was Cliff Bleszinski says if Microsoft was smart, they bring him on board, right? And then people see that pull quote, and then they go immediately to the comments, and it's just it's shitty journalism. It's like National Enquirer, page six kind of shit. And I've been dealing with it since like 1994, and it's getting pretty fucking old after all these years. So that's when I decided, I was going to take, matters into my own hands, and that's, you can say what you want about, you know, Twitter, which I'm never going to call it X because Elon Musk is a bit of a douche. Um, it's for me to have that direct pipeline to people who appreciate my work, and to remind people that I've been at this for decades now. If you go to my mobygames.com, which is like IMDb for
For
games,
games.
I have like 40 games I've worked on there. Like, this is not my first rodeo. And yeah, I've said some dumb shit in the past. Who the hell hasn't? I've tweeted,
Exactly.
I've posted some dumb shit on internet forums. Who hasn't? Like James Gunn got fired because of some like inappropriate tweets he made many years ago. Then they were like, wait a minute, this guy is kind of fucking awesome. Maybe we should bring him back, right? And now he's gonna, revitalize the DC universe. And
Mm.
it started with Guardians of the Galaxy because the thing about that movie was it had heart. Like the last Guardians, showing Raccoon's origin story. I felt like sad for a CG fucking raccoon. I mean, that takes skill in order to pull that shit off.
Do you have any resentment towards the gaming community because of, I mean, you worked your ass off for 20, 25 years, and then, I know you were burnt out by the end of it, but do you still hold resentment, or have you been able to overcome that, or how are you feeling
I've
now?
overcome a lot of that because of having other creative outlets, right?
Yeah.
And the weird thing is right now is I don't play shit. Like
Really?
if I have a PS5 sitting upstairs that I haven't even touched, and the only games that I play are on my Switch. I like sitting at a pub with a pint, and the missus, she's on her little laptop working on her Twitch clips, twitch.tv/lead Lauren L337 Lauren plug. And like I played the Princess Peach, the last one there, which was actually pretty cool. I'm gonna play the new Prince of Persia soon, but I've just been in reading mode lately.
Mm.
I have my little book light, and I've also like the thing is nothing appeals to me because the problem is when I was at Epic, I didn't see the behind the scenes of the numbers of the burn rate of the company, of everybody's salary, of what it costs for the PR and the marketing and HR and all the real estate and all that shit. When I had my studio with Boss Key, I saw all those numbers and I saw every month tick, tick,
Mm.
tick, tick. And it was like the TV show 24 where you could just, they had the timer, after every commercial break. And I really realizing that I had brought these people, some from, San Francisco, Washington State, San Diego to Raleigh, North Carolina. And I built up my team and I really cared about every single one of them. Some of them I'm still good friends with, and we still talk in the regular. When Lawbreakers came out and it face planted, and people were like, "This is an Overwatch clone." I'm like, "Oh, you really think we made this game in like 3 months after Overwatch came out? That's not how this works. It's like sometimes different creatives come to the same conclusion, just like we had Deep Impact and Armageddon at one point, right?
Mm.
And then we scrambled to make Radical Heights, and then fucking Fortnite blew up, and my wife and I joke we don't say the F word around the house because um, I was having a yeah, it's a whole thing, man. I need some therapy for that. Um, well, I
Well,
mean,
that's because you were there for the early stages, weren't you, for Fortnite?
I, I helped name it. I approved the art style. I approved the
Yep.
build system. I announced it on live TV at Jeff Keighley's Game Awards, or whatever the fuck he's calling it these days. And it's one of those things that like that one hurts a little bit. The Gears stuff doesn't really bother me that much. I think Gears 4 and 5 were really solid. I think they lacked a little bit of the heart that 1, 2, and 3 had. Maybe because I wasn't consulting or working on them. But I think when I saw the trailer for E-Day, I think it was a master class. It was a master stroke to just pivot the franchise for a little bit. And that when Marcus is gonna fall and the hand comes out and you realize it's Dom saving him, whereas Dom in Gears 3 saved Marcus and the crew, and then a little bit of Mad World kicks in. I got goosebumps. And for me, it's the whole thing about like weird example, but that my ex-girlfriend, the girl that I was in the Gears documentary, the MTV one that I
Mm.
actually I left for Lauren, right? She wonderful, lovely young woman. You know, and I left her because I just realized Lauren is everything I want. She's a big gamer, she's a beautiful blonde, and she's got a big old butt. And that's pretty much all I ever wanted in life. And she just, you know, we actually just celebrated the other day 12 years being married. And
Congrats, man.
the thing is, once in a blue moon, I'll talk to my ex-girlfriend, the one from the MTV special, and she's very happily married, has 3 kids with this handsome military dude. And so, you know, I you know, used to be a bit of a cheater, you know, back in the day because suddenly, you know, I'm young. I was in far better shape than I am now. I get a bit of a dad bod. I'm not even a fucking dad. And you know, living in downtown Raleigh in the party district, kind of like what's the King's Cross in Sydney? Is that
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that's a shit show.
It
Um,
is.
and you know, I had a Lamborghini, I had a beautiful dog, and it was like fish in a barrel. Like, you know, my ex would be like, "I'm gonna go to Thailand for a month," and I'm like, "I'm gonna be a cheating piece of shit the entire month." And then like, I hated myself, and I realized, you know, when I found Lauren, you know, my beautiful, you know, Miss Video Game, I was like, okay, I need to let this girl go because I'm being unfair to her. And you know, I really did love her for a while, but I just my ego got a hold of me, you know, and I think maybe that came out in my interviews and some of my social media posts. But you know, I'm far past that point. I don't have any Lamborghinis anymore. I had to sell them in order to afford the private jet flights to go to New Orleans. First world problems. The thing was, is I had to hemorrhage money on that because I didn't want to fly commercial because I didn't want my mother-in-law to die on a ventilator in a hospital. I didn't want to risk being, you know, exposed to other people on, you know, Southwest Airlines or some shit, right? That's the thing is, you know, she was able to pass, you know, surrounded by her family. And,
Yeah.
you know, when people die of cancer in the movies, it's usually like this. No, it wasn't
Not
like
in real
that.
life. Yeah.
No, she was gasping for air the entire time, frantically looking around, and it was not pretty. And it kind of fucking scarred me because Bleszinski's die quick, right? Like my dad died of a heart attack at age 47, boom, dead in a golf course. My nephew, 20 years old, died in a car accident, boom, gone. I have never seen somebody decline from cancer and things like that. And I think that's why I think the memoir actually turned out pretty darn good because I was feeling her pain and, you know, I feel the energy around me. That's why Gears of War, I think, turned out so good because it came out of the fall of my first marriage. And I've never been more motivated when I have somebody great to work with. And then when I'm angry, because, you know, as the Hulk says, oh, Bruce Banner, you wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
So, you think all the grieving you've done over the last few years has changed you as a person?
I think it's given me perspective to
Mm.
appreciate every day on
Yep.
this pale blue dot, right? And so, you know, I have a few tattoos, like some dumb ones. Like I got this one when I was in like my 20s. It's just like, I like tigers. I went into the tattoo shop and just like pointed at the flash. Gonna get it covered up eventually. But you know, the ones that have my arms, you know, it's like, you know, yeah, becoming a Broadway producer, you know, having the comedy and
Oh yeah,
tragedy
nice.
on me. And I have the Patton Oswalt quote from his comedy special Annihilation, where he's talking about the loss of his wife, Michelle McNamara, who wrote I'll Be Gone in the Dark and helped crack the case of the Golden State Killer. And he said he lost his wife. She had like pneumonia, but was also on some meds. And he woke up one day and she was just fucking dead next to him. And that comedy special will take you from laughing and crying like nonstop the entire time. And his wife's advice to him when he was having a hard time dealing with the world, Patton, she said to him, Patton, it's chaos. Be kind. And that was the last line of that comedy special. And that really, really resonated with me. And I went to YouTube the other day, actually, and I looked up the quote from when he says it. And I saw multiple comments like, I'm getting this tattooed on me. And then I tweeted it to him. Then he followed me on Twitter, and we like he came to Raleigh and did a great set. And I DM'd him like, "Great set, dude." He's like, "Thanks, man," because I've run into him a few times in the past.
But
And
why
that's
did
the thing
that why did that resonate with you? That quote
because
specifically.
I value my relationship with my wife so much. I
Mm.
never want to sleep without her. I never want to travel without her. Whenever I spoon her and fade into the darkness of night, I feel finally home. And that's, you know, the
Mm.
other tattoo I got, you know, it's just I feel finally home. That's what my brother said to me when we got married at the San Diego Safari Park. He said, how does it feel? And I said, for the first time since we left our childhood home, I feel like I'm finally home. And that's why in
Wow.
Gears, Marcus returns to his childhood home, right? Because, you know, like I said, I dream a lot. And almost every other night, I'm dreaming about my childhood home. And
Really?
yeah, I was raised middle class fairly. I wouldn't be where I am with my career if my dad hadn't bought that Apple IIc.
Well, he was
And
an
started
engineer, right?
Yeah, he worked at Polaroid in Cambridge. But he smoked, and then but he hit it later on in life, but he still snuck it. His diet wasn't very good. He started running later in life, but bad genetics. Had heart issues and boom, dead. And that's the thing is, it took me years to grapple with the fact that I used to go outside and look up at the moon and think he was up there looking down at me and think, Dad, are you proud of me? And that's the thing is,
Mm.
um, my stepdad actually wound up being a really, really great dude. Took great care of my mother. But anyway, it's just, there's a country song. I'm not that big on country, but God bless the broken road that led me straight to you. And I think, life is about all those bumps. It's like, when you look at Scrapper, and I lost, Teddy couldn't walk for the last year of his life. We had to take him out with a harness through the front door. And then when he had lesions from the harness and he started becoming continent. And I'm like, I'm keeping this dog alive for me. And I had a service come to the house right there. And, they gave him the first thing that puts him asleep. And then they gave him the second thing that stops his heart. Oh, still hurts
I've been
thinking
there,
about
man.
it.
It's so bad, isn't it? It's just
It
the
just
pain.
grief comes in waves, man.
Mm.
And the kicker was I messaged them, and I was like, well, he's a 60-pound dog who, might shit himself and he didn't, by the way, for the record. How are we going to get him from the front door to your car? And she's like, oh, you're going to help carry him with me. I'm like, the fuck I am. I'm not going to be able to see through my tears going down my front porch. I'm going to drop my fucking dog. So she brought her husband and they brought him away. And the thing is we have a condo at the beach, and at night I'd let him run off leash. I'd put a little glow stick around his neck, right? And he would always come when called. He was so smart. And when I'd run away from him, and I go, bye, Ted, and then he would chase after me because he's a herding dog, right? The sad beauty of when I felt his last exhale, I inhaled it, and I looked at him, patted his head, and I said, bye, Ted. And yeah. So anyway, on that note,
No,
I
no, man.
realized,
I really appreciate you being open and honest. And I've noticed that,
well,
yeah,
life is a series of dogs, as George Carlin says, right? And as
yeah.
Louis C.K. says, dogs are a countdown to heartache. And I realized that feelings are like rivers or tributaries. You can kind of redirect them. And I realized that I wanted to redirect the sadness that I felt about losing him into the love of the Pomsky that my wife found, my little lady girl. And she was the inspiration for Scrapper in the first place. And she was in Charlotte. We live in Raleigh. Charlotte's about 3 hours away. And the final season premiere of Game of Thrones was coming up in New York City. We went to one of the ones in LA a while back. I actually met Elon Musk at the after party, oddly enough. And the thing is we flew up there. We went to the premiere, hung out with the Mountain, met John Oliver, got fucked up with the whole cast at an
Is the
after
mountain
party.
as big as we think?
He's fucking enormous, dude. I shook his hand and I felt like a Smurf. And there's more to that story, but I'm saving it for my next stand-up bit. So then we flew down to Charlotte, North Carolina, scooped her up, and it was love at first sight. And she's, I call her my BP, my baby princess. And we sit there and watch TV and movies downstairs every night. And she just sits like a
No.
dude in a lazy boy chair. And I love having my hand in her chest and feeling her breathe, and just knowing that she's with me, and knowing that dogs, your odds are you're gonna outlive your damn dog. We appreciate them, and
Mm.
by the way, fuck cats. I hate cats.
My wife would say the same thing. So, how plugged in are you to the gaming scene these days? You said you don't really play. Is there a reason for that?
Again, once you see the dollars on screen, like I
Yeah,
look
yeah,
at
yeah.
some of the games that Naughty Dog does, like I look at Elden Ring, and I've seen those budgets, and like I've seen what crunch time can do to a family or a relationship. It's a tough business. And maybe I'm jaded. There's the old saying, teach a man to make video games and he won't want to play one for the rest of his life. And I think I've just kind of the last couple of years have been in hibernation. I have a sticker on the back of my phone that says book slut. And I think video games, reading for me is a similar thing in regards to video games, in regards to it gives you that sense of flow. right? And
Yeah, right.
my old writing partner Josh Ortega on Gears of War 2, he said that video games are a lot of books, and the fact that if you stop playing a video game, the game stops. You know, if you walk out of a movie, the movie keeps going. If you walk out of the room when a TV show is going on, it keeps going. If you stop reading a book, you're done right there. So you have to keep pushing forward. That's the thing is, I've been fascinated by studying the Venn diagrams of different industries lately. I've been trying my hand at stand-up comedy. I've
Dude,
done
I'll give you guts. That takes guts, man. That's fucking tough.
well. I've learned a lot. I've
Have
become
you?
friends with I've become friends with Dane Cook and Doug Stanhope, like tips and shit. I'll send my sets to them and everything like that. And the thing is it's one of those things that crowd work is so fucking hard. Remembering, your bits, reading the room, and the other technique of like doing the setup, like, is anybody in here married? And then like, yeah, and then you tell your joke about marriage, and the audience feels engaged and things like that. I was a drama nerd in high school. I played Mercutio in Romeo and Juliet. I was the lead in 10 Little Indians. I played Lenny in Neil Simon's Rumors. Like, I'm a Broadway producer. Like, I have no problem being in front of a crowd. I do karaoke once or twice a week, right?
Yeah.
And with debatable success, but it's karaoke is another art form. But it's just like, but stand up's a whole different beast, man.
Oh,
And so I go to the local comedy club about once a week. And actually, they have two rooms. They have the small room and the big room, right? And I actually prefer the small room because it's usually comedians that aren't really known yet. And then, we were sitting in the front row one time. There's another story there, but this woman was the host of that night, and she looks at my wife and she looks at me and she's like, "Oh, we got some Christina Aguilera looking girl up in here." And she looks at me, she's like, "Oh, this guy, he looks like a producer." And I'm like, "What are you, Miss Cleo? Jesus Christ." I mean, Lauren's like I was hoping for Avril, but
Avril. Yeah.
because she loves Avril. She's dragging me to see Avril again in September in Charlotte.
Hey, that was a pretty good bit of Deadpool and Wolverine with that song. I've
Oh,
been
dude,
listening to Avril too after that movie, and
dude,
then NSYNC too.
dude, and like a prayer. Apparently,
Yeah, like a prayer.
Hugh Jackman actually had to meet with Madonna in order to like have her license that song. Did you notice in the background of that slow motion epic shot of them? It says Liefeld's Just Feet because the artist Rob Liefeld, the famous comic book artist that drew them, he never drew feet, and so there's so many little gags.
Oh, wow.
There's so many little gags
Shit.
in there. And X23 stole the show in Logan. I think that girl's going to be huge. I remember watching that. She's just like screaming at them. She's just fucking murks all these fuckers, right? And
Mm.
she needs her own spin-off movie. But I knew that movie would be fucking huge, dude.
Oh, yeah.
I was grinning ear to ear the entire time. The when Blade came into frame, the theater fucking lost it. And he slowly strolled into the sunlight, because Daywalker. We have Blade to thank for this era of R-rated superhero movies. Blade walks so Deadpool could run. That's the thing is, like Hollywood, like even when we were working on the Gears of War film, they're like, it's got to be PG-13 because it needs a lot of CG and blah 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 blah. And I'm like, the main gun has a fucking chainsaw on it, dude. Like, what the fuck? Um, and so that cratered, and hopefully they make some good hardcore R stuff. But I mean, this movie is on track to make over $1 billion. It's an example of give the people what they want. And when Hugh Rock, well, he would look great in a burlap sack. Like, the dude's a fucking hero. Why is everybody from Australia so hot? Margot Robbie, etc. Like Samara
You
Weaving.
including me in that list, Cliff?
Yeah, absolutely. You gotta be in there. I wish I could have a beard like yours. Um, and when Hugh puts the fame fucking like
I know that
mask
was a
on,
great moment. Yeah.
and they did the whole like whited out eyes, and he kept it on for the majority of the rest of the movie. It was fucking amazing. And we have an Alamo Draft House in town. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them. It's a place that was founded by a guy named Tim League in Austin, Texas. And they had these movie parties where you can laugh and talk along and blah 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 blah. We went to one for The Naked Gun, which is one of the greatest films
Oh, so
ever
funny.
made.
Yeah.
Stop calling me Shirley. Um, and but normally, if you're just gonna go see like a regular release, they have a rule: no talking, no texting. You get one rule, and after that, your ass gets booted out without a refund. Because one of my biggest pet peeves in life is movie talkers.
Oh,
It's always
stop.
it's
Honestly.
always in Act 3 they're like, wait, who is that? What do they do? You're like, if you would shut the fuck up with Act 1 and 2, you know what the hell's going on, you idiot. And it's like that's the thing about hecklers with stand-up comedy. It's like I didn't pay $28 to hear you, you idiot. You just had a bucket of Coronas, and you think you're going to outsmart this person that does this 6 days a week on stage in front of dozens, at least maybe hundreds of people. Yeah,
Have you
good
had
luck.
one? Have you had a
Uh,
heckler?
I have not because the problem with when I do stand up is it's usually open mic nights. And open mic is
Yeah.
usually local comedians who haven't made it big yet. And they're usually in the crowd like, and
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
thing about stand up, it's going back to video games. It's like life. It's like relationships. It's like restaurants. Everything is iteration. With a restaurant, with our restaurants that we open, you had friends and family night. With the game, you have an alpha and a beta, right? I had a starter marriage, right? And the thing is one of my favorite movies is Jerry Seinfeld's movie called Comedian, where you could go to the comedy club or comedy cellar in Manhattan and see, Dave Chappelle show up and bomb. That's life in general. I've done it 7 times. I've bombed 5 times, and I got a few chuckles. And that's the thing is, I became friends with the local stand-up comedian who's been doing it for 20 years. He's kind of been like my Sherpa for it, giving me points and tips and everything like that. It's fucking hard, man. And
But every
video
comedian bombs. That's the thing.
well,
Like
that's the
if
thing. I
yeah.
was prepared for. I read some books on stand up, and the thing is I'm a big fan of Taylor Tomlinson, and I think we're in the golden era of funny females because we only had like Gilda Radner for a while, and Paula Poundstone. There weren't a lot of them, right? Now we got your Nikki Glazers, your Erica Rhodes, right? And we were at the comedy show though, and like the crowd, it was a large venue, and there was hecklers in the back, and she was like shaming the hecklers, and it's just like there's the whole thing, like this person is working, like let them do their fucking job. But I love the reversals, right? Like I'm friends with Joe Rogan, right? I did his podcast like 3 times,
Mm.
and I was at a comedy show of his in Charlotte, and some guy was talking shit to him, and Joe looks at the guy, and the guy's with a girl, and he's like, "Hey, sweetie, do you have to work?" And she goes, "Well, are you a couple?" "Yes." Joe goes, "Sweetie, do you have to work?" And she goes, "Yes." And Joe looks at the guy and says, "Watch your back." And like Sam Burrell's also amazing. His crowd work is second to none. What he'll do is he'll take on somebody, crush them, but then buy them a drink, right? Which is just the best, right? So I haven't had any hecklers. It's an art form. I'm a big fan of Chris Rock. Like yeah, Doug Stanhope is incredible. I got to go backstage with him when he came to the local improv. Got fucked up on his vodka with him and his girlfriend Bingo. Sam Morril was in town. Went backstage with him and chilled with him and drank a little bit of wine. I was very intimidated by him because he's so fucking cerebral and he's so fucking on point. I met Nikki Glazer a few years back. We got a photo together at the small comedy club in town. We met her again at her meet and greet after one of her latest shows. And people are like, oh, she's like, "Do you want a photo?" I'm like, "I already have one." And she signs the photo and she goes, "I'm a solid 8 in this photo," Nikki Glazer. And that's the other tattoo I got, like recently is, there's this a college basketball coach named Jimmy Valvano that died of cancer years ago. And he did a speech at the ESPY Awards. He could barely make it on a stage because he was so weak. And he says, if you could do 3 things every day, if you could laugh, think, and cry, do that 7 days a week, you're living a good life. And really resonated with me because I'll look up like videos on YouTube that I know are going to get me, just to,
Dom sacrifice.
yeah, honestly,
I
it sounds very masturbatory when you think about it.
don't blame you.
Here's the thing. I've said this in other podcasts, but there's a scene in Doctor Who where they have the time machine, the TARDIS, and everything,
Yep.
and they fight in Vincent Van Gogh, and you get my girl Karen Gillan. She's a friend of mine. That's right, I said it. And Matt, the doctor, and they bring Vincent to the Musée d'Orsay in Paris, which I've been to. It's lovely. And they take him into this room where all of his work is being displayed, Starry Night, etc. And he struggled to sell a single painting throughout his entire life. And then the actor looks just like him, and then the music swells and he looks around and he starts crying, And because Bill Nye, not the science guy, the British actor, Matt, the doctor says to him, well, what's the significance of Vincent's work? And he says, you know, he was a wonderful man, and this he might have been one of the greatest of all time. And the actor just loses it, starts crying, and hugs the doctor as, you know, Karen Gillan looks on. And for me, as a creative, yeah, I mean, I like money, you know, I like to have prime rib sometimes, you know, I like my big dumb house, paying my bills and shit. But the thing is you just want to know that your work made an impact on people. I mean,
Yes.
last year at Comic-Con, you know, Alex DeCampi, my writing partner on Scrapper, and I,
Throw it again. Yeah, great cover too.
oh, it turned out tight, tight. Um, and so we're sitting at the signing booth in Artist's Alley signing copies of Scrapper, and people are coming up with some gear stuff too, and like whatever, I'll sign anything. Um, and this woman comes up, she must have been like mid-50s, and she starts crying to me and saying that Gears of War literally saved her life. And I was like,
How
holy
do you
shit
not
snaps.
cry?
Well, that's the thing is I started crying too. My mirror neurons were firing, right? And I
Yeah.
was like, oh my God. And I signed all her stuff. Like, do you want a hug? And I gave her a hug. And, you know, that's what it's really all about. You know, people getting the
Mm,
tattoos and all that stuff, you know, the fandom in a good way. Right. And, you know, every community seemingly always turns toxic, which breaks my heart. Um,
mm.
but I think, you know, it's not a day goes by when somebody tweets me or posts to my public Facebook that make Gears great again. I'm like, first off, I hate the fact that you're co-opting 45's stupid fucking MAGA slogan. Second off, I've been quite open about the fact that I'd be happy to consult. And, you know, it's crickets, you know. Maybe I talk about eating ass too much on Twitter. I don't know. I don't trust a
Well,
man that doesn't swear, read books, or eat ass.
what? So, I'm guessing you knew about Gears E Day before
I,
that.
I, I did not, dude. I don't talk to anybody anymore.
Wow. So
Yeah.
you saw it when everyone else did. That
Yeah,
trailer.
yeah, yeah. And again,
Wow.
I think it's a fucking brilliant move on their part. Again, giving the people what they want. You know, the potential for set pieces is amazing. I rewatched the scene from the Spielberg War of the Worlds, where the aliens have been kind of impregnated in Earth and they come up, and there's that famous scene where you know the tripod walkers start dusting people. All right.
Trying to
What do they
remember it.
do?
It's been a while.
Yeah,
Tom Cruise, right?
yeah, it
Yeah,
holds
yeah.
up. Basically, Tom Cruise's Twitter profile says, "I'm basically running a lot in movies," which is brilliant. And but you see the ground start to break. This church kind of falls over, like, and you know that's the thing.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, yeah, you know, one of the many reasons I left Epic, you know, apart from getting enough money to not have to fucking work, and also investing in Oculus, which was the greatest investment of my entire life. Thanks, Zuck. Keep that stock going. And how is it we're in a world where Zuck looks kind of cool and Elon Musk looks douchier? I don't know. Anyway, where am I going with this? But the potential for set pieces with E-Day and
Yes.
leaving Epic, like I was just happy I didn't have to argue with programmers about creative decisions ever again. Because,
Was that what started to happen?
well, I remember when I proposed first the Locust coming out from the underground, and one of the programmers was like, really smart guy, young at the time. He's like, I don't buy it, and I'm like, why? He's like, well, how did they get there? I'm like, that's part of the fucking mystery, dude. You know, it's a random alien planet. It's not even Earth. And then, of course, that unspooled over the course of how, the KTIF wound up being, ushered away and how they were, mutants from emulsion and things like that. And, you don't want to do the J.J. Abrams pyramid scheme of storytelling where you answer one question and then ask three more, right? Because that inevitably collapses on itself. Um, but the thing is, with Gears 4, when I was working on it, when I was still at Epic, I wanted to have the Locust, because they were like, they all the emulsion vanished, all the lambents, poof, done, and the Locust all just collapsed. They went into stasis, and then the idea was that they were covered in these kind of like crystalline shells. Well, the idea was that it was a chrysalis, and the idea is they were grubs, and then they would become not butterflies, but they would evolve, and so basically the pitch was, before they came from below, now they come from above. And they'd attack you with wings coming from above. And there's so much potential with that where they're coming at with these vestigial limbs, trying to stab you. You shoot them, they try and fly away, you shoot them down, and you see the bullet holes in the wings and things like that. There's just so many possibilities with it. And one of the programmers sat in my office like, yeah, I don't buy the wings. What don't you buy? What do you buy? Like what? I just don't buy it. And that guy, I'm pretty sure, is still at Epic and is fucking loaded now. That's the thing in my memoir, which, by the way, there's an image of Tim Sweeney and I. And I could email Tim.
Oh man,
He'll email back. He'd be like, "Want to get launched? Fine, whatever."
dude,
Tim
isn't
is
he a
like,
billionaire at this point?
I believe. Well, that's where I was getting to is myself and Tim before we went to the Wired Rave Awards, where it says one of these people is a multimillionaire, one of them is a multi-billionaire, right? And the thing is I could have stayed, at Epic longer.
What
Uh,
was
I
the
just,
main reason you didn't?
I was just burnt out.
Yeah,
I was, I remember being at my wedding, in at the San Diego Safari Park with Lauren, and Tim and Mark came, and I remember getting a photo in the photo booth with them, and I deep down thought this might be the last photo the three of us are ever going to get together, and because my agent was trying to renegotiate, because throughout my career at Epic, I just accepted whatever Tim had given me, however many stock options, whatever the salary was. There's the old saying in the world, you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate. And they got me when I was like 17 years old. I was totally wet behind the ears.
but they
And
looked
deep
after
down,
you, right, over the years.
oh, what I like to say is they were good to me, but
Yeah,
I was great to them.
right.
They wouldn't have sold any engines if we hadn't delivered 90 plus rated games, right? And the engine actually, when they did Paragon, which I actually thought was a really solid idea and looked great.
Paragon.
Yeah,
Oh
it was
yes, I remember
basically
that.
it was kind of like a next generation Smite, right?
Mm.
And Smite was the only MOBA I've ever enjoyed, to be frank. I don't get League, I don't get Dota. I played the hell out of StarCraft. I played the hell out of Red Alert and Red Alert 2. I enjoy RTS games, but for some reason the three lane MOBA with jungling and all that stuff, and I just never got it. But it's that's the thing is there's certain things that scare me as a creative and as a pop culture aficionado that become huge. And I'm like, okay, like wow, World of Warcraft. Like my wife still jams around in it, right? And I tried it. I'm like, I couldn't get into it. Like I'm more of like I played Ultima Online back in the day, and that was my jam. That game was fucking hardcore, right? I go to my wife's computer. She's got like 8 fucking monitors at this point. It looks like the deck. Looks like the
The
deck.
Batcave.
Yeah, it looks like the deck of the Nebuchadnezzar in the Matrix. And she's got like like Twitch up on one screen, and then she has like on the second screen, it's like wow, and she's just on a mount doing like auto travel, and I'm like wow, that's fucking compelling, and it's just a glorified it's a glorified fetch quest chat room, but it fucking worked.
Did you play Red Dead 2?
I did not, but I hear it's fucking amazing.
Yeah, oh, I'd love to know your thoughts on that because from a detail perspective, I think that's probably the best game ever made.
Rockstar has more money than God at this point. And I mean, you look at like what they do and what they're making essentially are life simulators. And
Yes. Yes, exactly.
my wife and I'll be walking down the street in like downtown or over here, just people walking by saying stuff, and I'll turn to her and be like, GTA NPC, right? And, and that's the thing is, like when the last one that they did was which took place in Los Angeles. I've spent plenty of time in LA. Like, yeah, they had to compress it, of course, because physics. And but I remember like driving. I'm like, oh yeah, that's the those big cylinders outside LAX, and that's the Santa Monica Pier, and I know this part, blah blah blah. And it's they do such a good job with it, and like the engineering effort involved with that. I do not want to know what their budgets are like.
Oh,
GTA 6 is the next one, right?
yeah.
Yeah, because
Supposedly next year, I don't know.
that's the meme online is we're gonna get this before we get GTA 6. But I mean,
Exactly.
I just hope not many families are getting ruined in the development of that game because they do make incredible stuff, but at what cost?
So what do you think you would have been working on if you stayed at Epic? Do you think you would have worked on Fortnite and been there for that whole crazy thing?
Well, I did work on Fortnite, but yeah, the whole crazy thing. They had a versus mode in Fortnite, way near the beginning, and it was tough.
Ah,
And that's the whole thing is that in my memoir,
yep.
I talk about being in the room, as they say in Hamilton, the room where it happens. The game was being incepted, right? And Rod tried to cancel it because Rod just had undying loyalty to Gears. The guy has a fucking Gears tattoo in his body, which I think is kind of weird. It's like Spielberg getting an ET tattoo in his ass. Like, don't get high in your own
You
supply,
don't have a
man.
dog tattoo on your ass?
No. Um, well, if I do get a cover up of this, it'll probably be Scrapper. So that'd be
Ah,
the only
nice.
time I've ever done that. Anyway, I couldn't hang in there. It took Fortnite 6 or 7 years in order to become the phenomenon that it became. And what happened was PUBG blew up. I believe it was a programmer that I knew, Pete Nepoli, that I almost poached for Bosky. Really good dude. He kept saying, let's do, battle royale with this. Let's do a versus. And then they did, and it was perfect timing. Ninja glommed onto it, and then boom, phenomenon. They created the whole V-Bucks thing. And next thing I always know when something's a phenomenon when I go to the NC State Fair, which is a good old time to eat a lot of terrible food. My wife and I dress in like redneck outfits when we go there. We essentially cosplay. Them's is real life tigers. Can I get me a turkey leg? And you can tell like the knockoff Chinese toys at the game. Years ago it was Angry Birds, and then a couple of years ago it was the pinatas from Fortnite and things like that, right? And
So true.
if I were to ever start a full video game studio again, which I shall not, I would kind of want to call it KLTS, which stands for Kids Love That Shit. And it's one of those things that they hit lightning in a bottle. And I mean, the thing is Donald Mustard was the main creative on Fortnite for years. And he actually got fuck you money and fucked off. Good for him. His wife is great too. And the thing was when I left Epic, I told the powers that be, I'm like, because Donald is a lot like me. He's cool enough that he can hang out with the artists, but he's nerdy enough for the nerds, right? He doesn't drink because he's Mormon, but he could go out for like a coffee or a pint with the artists and like bond with them over stuff. Or you could just, talk to a programmer like, oh my God, did you read, the last Game of Thrones book or things like that, right?
Mm.
And that's the balance you have to have as a creative. And Donald is also charismatic enough that he could do interviews and stand in front of a room and sell something to the board of directors or a publisher. And he deserved everything that he got because he worked his butt off for that company and he's a good dude. But yeah, I mean, my thing is, when I was at Epic, I was working like triple duty. I was the spokesperson for the company, tirelessly going to press junkets. I did 5 European cities in 5 days. I went to Sydney, Australia one time. I
Oh, you
was
did?
also, yeah,
Yeah.
I'll get there. Lovely city. Didn't make it out to King's Cross though. And the thing is I was also, being like design director at Epic, spearheading the Gears of War franchise, but I was also helping with Bulletstorm. I was helping
Of
with
course, Bulletstorm. Forgot about that.
helping with
Yeah.
Shadow Complex, helping with Infinity Blade. Like that's why my Moby games run so deep. And I'm like, the way that I did it was I was pounding caffeine nonstop, and I was still drinking a bit. The thing was is the number one hangover cure is the decongestant Claritin D, and there's a reason they make meth with it. And especially with convention life, where you're going out and you're networking, you're drinking, and then you have to get up at 8 the next day to be there for your 9 o'clock call time to do on-camera interviews for G4 or God knows what. And
Yeah.
so yeah, fun fact about the Australia thing
Yeah.
is Microsoft was like, "Hey, do you want to come to Australia to promote Gears?" And I think it was Gears 2, yeah. And you get to meet the Pussycat Dolls. And I'm like, the Scooby voice. I was like, hell yeah. So I fly Raleigh, New York, LA to Sydney. And it's a
Yeah,
long
that's a
flight.
tough flight, man.
Even in
That's
business
a
class,
tough flight.
it fucking sucks.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a long flight when they have to warn you. The flight attendants warn you about deep vein thrombosis. Like Jesus
My
Christ,
mum got that on a flight to US, funnily
that's
enough.
that's
Yeah.
terrifying. You could
Yeah.
die from that shit, man.
Yeah. She
Um,
she said the one good thing was she was the first out of the plane.
oh, good for her. So I'm assuming she's
She's
okay.
fine. She's fine. Yeah, yeah.
Well, so the thing was I was I'm there doing my thing, and it was actually not in the Sydney Opera House; it was outside of it. And I met the girls; they're all dolled up, and I'm like this. And
So that
Nicole,
photo exists somewhere.
yeah, it's on my personal Facebook, and it's like potato quality because it was many years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
But and I was so like they were all glammed up; they looked fucking great. Nicole Scherzinger was sweet as shit. And then they're performing their set list, and they have a song where the chorus is "Be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. You just might get it." And it's pouring fucking chilly ass rain down on them, and they're not missing a beat. Like they got the pumps on, they're doing the choreography. People are like scattering away from like like they don't want to get rained on, right? And they just the girls are just soaked by the end of it. And it's like when Taylor Swift did that set recently where she's in an open stadium and she's just on her piano just jamming, just totally like soaked, still looks amazing somehow. and fucking I am a bit of a Swiftie, to be fair.
I can
And
tell.
she's basically a billionaire at this point. She's probably making God knows how much off the concert and the merch. So
Oh, you
you
think
could,
Tim's a billionaire? I think she might be up there with him.
I'm pretty sure she is. Yeah, yeah. And a lot of people like to hate her, but I think she's great. Who I've become obsessed with lately is Chappell Roan. Have you heard her?
No.
So it's a long story, but this dude I became friends with, he's a local dude, tech guy, writer. He comes to karaoke at the beer garden every Monday, which I'm there. He started bringing his 15-year-old daughter there, right? And we're a family-friendly establishment, right? Super smart kid, super savvy. The kid goes up and sings in front of a room full of adults and just like has stage presence and shit, right? And the kid's gonna go far. But I learned after 40, like finding new music becomes exponentially harder. Because for me, it's like I'm just gonna listen to 90s hip hop and 80s hair metal. Like I'm good. And I was like, so I'm like, okay, kiddo, like what are you listening to? And she's like, Chappell Roan. I'm like, okay. So I'm at home and I'm like, Echo, Alexa, play Chappell Roan. And I'm sitting there, I turn to the wife, I'm like, this shit is good. And so then I Google Chappell Roan, and Chappell Roan was actually coming to Raleigh in like a week. And Chappell Roan was originally going to play like this small venue called the Ritz, and then just the smaller venues, but the tickets kept selling so well. And then wound up playing the Red Hat Amphitheater, which is a medium to large venue. And I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm in because these songs are great. My wife and I are at this downtown restaurant called Pools, which is adjacent to the venue, the Red Hat Amphitheater, eating our dinner, and we see all these people going by. We see these young women, and then their dudes they're with, and I mean, not to be weird, but I have pretty good gaydar. It's they're gay besties, and but they're wearing pink and like pink like cowboy hats because like that's a thing of hers. It was one of her favorite, and she revealed that she's gay, fine, cool, whatever. But that actually has helped her kind of get to the stratosphere because she's appealed to women in the gay demographic, just like Lady Gaga did and Katy Perry. Well, before women's world. Anyway, so I'm like, shit, we would have dressed up if we got the memo. But she does a song called Hot to Go, and there's a whole dance with, HOTTOGO. And everyone's doing this. I'm like, the fuck? I didn't, is this the new Macarena for the gay generation? I don't fucking know. And so, we saw a video of her performing at Lollapalooza, and it was the crowd was just insane. And once we left her performance at the Red Hat Amphitheater, I turned to my wife, and I'd like to think I know a good thing when I see it. I'm like, yeah, she'll be filling stadiums in no time soon. And so she has this crazy fashion sense. And just look up her music. It's she's really, really great. And I believe though, by consuming pop culture of all types, TV, film, music, musicals. I think as a creative, that's grist for the mill. That's what can actually help make you a better creative because everything's a fucking remix, man. Mandalorian is just a Western. It's just like
In
one of my
disguise, yeah.
yeah, one of
Yeah.
my favorite books that I read a couple of years ago is called Hitmakers. If you want to make something, that's a hit, take something that is old but make it feel somewhat fresh. That's, in my opinion, the key to so many different successful IPs. I mean, Scrapper is basically Batman as a dog, but it's also a thinly veiled statement on gentrification, over militarization of the police force, and totalitarianism. But I'll leave that to the kids to decide.
Man, I think you're right, but also, don't you think there's too many remakes, remasters
Well,
lately?
that's different from what I'm saying,
I know, I
right?
know, I know.
I mean, that's the thing is like Hollywood and everybody in general, they want the name right? And the thing is Bob Kane made Batman, like Stan Lee made Spider-Man, the Fantastic Four, and so many things, and somebody bet on them, right? We have these established IPs because somebody had the balls to put them out there and to create and will things into existence. And when I worked at Epic, I never wanted to do a licensed game. Like I always wanted to make new, fresh, original IP. And now you're looking at the fact that Netflix is looking at developing a Gears of War series. There, the movies, possibly back in production. That's because I got up one day and I was like, okay, the Gears of War are lubricated with the blood of soldiers. Here's this guy, Marcus Phoenix. He's down in his luck, and we have Delta Squad. We have these creatures called Locust. They're from the underground. It's a planet called Sarah, which is Ares spelled backwards, the god of war. And we have this destroyed beauty architecture everywhere. And then next thing millions of copies later. That's what it takes. It takes a defiant creative to put their foot down and be like, here's how shit's gonna go, motherfuckers. And that's what I've done my entire career. It didn't work out with Lawbreakers, but I still am proud of that game. I think a
Is it
lot
getting
of
a
it,
resurgence? I saw
yeah,
or something.
they're somehow reverse engineering it and having test servers. And I'm like, I don't know how you're doing this. I don't know if it's legal. Frankly, think Nexon probably doesn't give a shit at this point. But then even Radical Heights, there are people that are resurrecting that. And for me, it feels like a sense of vindication. When Gears came out and, I saw so many responses that are like, this is just some dumb big bro shooter, blah, 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 blah. And, once late afternoon, if I've had a mimosa, I'll go to YouTube and just look up like, Maria's death scene or, Dom's sacrifice and things like that. And almost all the comments are like, man, I had to put down the controller after that, or, this made a grown man cry. And that was also the $1 million question for so many years is, can a video game make you cry? I'm like, bitch, I was crying in fucking, what was it, Lunar. I was crying in Phantasy Star 2 with me and me first. There's that scene in Lunar where Alex is going up the stairs and, I can't remember her name right now. The girl who becomes the goddess and she's zapping him and he's trying to talk her out of it. And it's just these little pixelated characters. And for some reason that just moved the shit out of me. And that the Sega CD version with the animated opening, fighting through the darkness, evil forces take heed, and that was my
Dude, your
jam.
memory is insane for little tidbits in media. I've never seen. You could
Well,
recite
that's
so much.
well,
Like that is.
my wife one time we were sitting at the beach drinking, and she was picking out random movies on IMDb and be like, "Who directed that?" I'm like, "Darren Aronofsky, Steven Spielberg, blah 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 blah." And the one thing that my ex-wife had right was she said I have a Hollywood heart on, which apparently now that I'm friends with like some comedians and celebrities, it's at Comic-Con for a few years in a row, Justin Roiland from Rick and Morty, and Alex Hirsch from Gravity Falls. Justin got canceled. There's a lot more to that story than what people want you to believe. We would throw what we would call a big dumb yacht party, right? And I'd invite like cosplayers, game developers, as well, and celebs would just roll up. Like Weird Al was there one time. Machine Gun Kelly came, and then being friends with David and Dan from Game of Thrones, they're like they messaged me like the cast is at the dock, and they come up. I'm like, duh. So I'm sitting there getting like hanging out with this is the first time I hung out with the cast of Game of Thrones. And that was the thing is when I saw Sophie Turner at the after party for the final season premiere, I was like, Sophie, hey, you came to my Comic-Con party. And she goes, the one with the monkey. Because we hired Crystal the monkey from The Hangover to come to the party.
Oh
She
my
has an
goodness!
She has an IMDb. And then
How much does that cost?
it's not cheap. So whenever I see Sophie and Natalie Emmanuel, they give me a kiss in the cheek because we've hung out, and it's one of those things. And Joe Jonas is a dick, by the way. And the thing is, so I'm at the final season premiere of Game of Thrones. I get a message that there's an after party at the Mandarin Oriental in Manhattan, right? And so I'm like, okay, let's fucking Uber it over there. We get there, and we see the whole cast hanging out. And I see Liam Cunningham, and he's dressed in a suit. He's like, I'm gonna go upstairs and change that because he comes back down. But it turns out his daughter was studying game design under John and Brendan Romero in Dublin, Ireland, right? And so I ran into his daughter, lovely daughter Ellen, at the game developer conference years ago, and I'm introducing her to everybody I fucking know. Now she has a career making games and is doing well with it. But Liam comes back down. He's wearing a t-shirt and sweatpants. And Kit Harington, Jon Snow, looks at him. You look like a homeless man, Dad. So I'm catching up with Liam, and I see Peter Dinklage like running around, right? And he's a little tipsy because physics. And I'm like, Liam, I want to meet fucking Tyrion, fucking Lannister. Dinklage is the best. Yeah, what I love about Peter is like no one cares about the fact that he's a small dude. He's just that good of an actor that he just gets cast in awesome shit, right? And so I shake his hand, and then fucking Dinklage grabs Liam's left nipple, starts twisting it. I grab Liam's fucking right nipple, and I'm giving Sir Davos a titty twister with Tyrion Lannister in front of Jon Snow and Daenerys Targaryen. And that was pretty much a legend.
That might be the craziest story I've ever heard.
Well, Sophie's running around like she's wearing a gorgeous dress, looking beautiful. She has a fries that she's eating. She's wearing slippers though, and she's taking a shot at tequila and everything. It was fucking. It was bedlam. Yeah.
Have you ever met Dave Bautista? Because I swear he'd be the perfect. He's a hell of an actor.
Well, that's the thing is, back in the day when we were talking about a Gears of War film, I was like, I don't want any wrestlers, I want legit method actors and things like that, right? And it's like in hindsight, if you're a wrestler, you have to be a fucking actor. That's the whole point, right? To be fair, The Rock pretty much plays The Rock playing The Rock all the time. But you look at Bautista, and his depiction of Drax, which the vibe is that the character is slightly on the spectrum, right? Not knowing, saying the inappropriate things at inappropriate times.
Mm.
But then, you look at him in Blade Runner. You
Oh,
look at him
great
in
film.
that it was the M. Night Shyamalan movie.
Knock on the Cabin. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. He was great in that. And then he actually donned the Gears armor and did a video. I think he'd be a great Marcus. And in regards to casting, I can't speak for that. It's so complicated because, like you never know who's, the person that's hot at the moment. Like, you want like traditional actors, you want some who's like, the hot, like your Sydney Sweeney's of the moment and things like that, right? um your Greta
Yep.
Gerwig, like that kind of thing. But who knows? I mean, by the way, in regards to pop culture, I've read every issue of Entertainment Weekly for 20 years. um and hence the Hollywood hard on. And it's like little stories like, you know we just got back from Comic-Con in San Diego a couple weeks ago, and
How was
I'm,
that?
start, I'm starting to think I'm too old for this shit. Like,
Why?
I don't know if you go to cons, but like the crowds post COVID, cons feel weird, man. Maybe that's why I have this cold right now. My wife, she's dragging me to TwitchCon in San Diego, and like, I'm fucking old, man. And that's the thing is, I love San Diego. We got married again at the safari park, but the thing is like Twitch parties are high school. I've been to them. We're like, oh, so are you partnered? How many followers do you have? How many concurrent? Like, it's just one big dick measuring
Oh,
competition.
I hate that.
And then
That's
you get
annoying.
and the thing is, get somebody like Ninja that's huge, got a ton of fucking money, and I think he still posts occasionally, but he basically got his money and then just kind of like dialed it back a little bit. Good for him. But then you have some of these, people like I don't get like, like I respect the hustle, like watching my wife stream right now. And Broadway actors have to be on 8 times a week for just 2.5 hours. Streamers are online for 6 to 8 hours 6 to 7 days a week. That's exhausting to be, what's up, guys? Like and subscribe kind of shit, right? But it's just like you get somebody who's like a big deal like Pokimane. I'm like, I mean, she's cute, but okay. Like, thing is we live in a world, dude, where loneliness is an industry. And that's why OnlyFans is thriving, because you have an entire generation, especially of young men, that have no idea how to go out in public and talk to the opposite sex. And so what they do is they have these e-girl kind of relationships. And when a girl gets to a certain level on OnlyFans, she just hires interns to just respond to make it act like she's her. I mean, hello. But the sad thing is these people are lonely and they feel like they need a connection. And it's kind of fucked up when you think about it. And I mean, I respect the hustle of these girls. My favorite Instagram is called Butt Snorkeler. Have you seen it?
I've
Basically,
heard you talk about this on your set, comedy
yeah, yeah,
set. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, that it's just Instagram butt models, just butts, 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 and it always comes up as I was saying to my comedy set when I'm sitting on the toilet taking a shit, and like the mental gymnastics I have to be like, that's a great butt while I'm taking a shit, knowing that shit comes from that butt. It's a lot of gymnastics. I could have gotten gold. By the way, did you see that video of that famous dude who did the pole vault thing and his big dick?
Dick got in the way. Hey, there's worse things you could be known for, don't you think?
Well, that's like the highlight of the Olympics this year, right? Just like
Oh,
fuck swimming in the Seine. Like that guy just won
man.
the year. Like he's
Oh
not
no,
gonna
what
have the
about
best.
that other guy, the shooter? He's been up there as well.
Oh yeah, the meme guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the meme guy. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing is, we live in more than ever in the last 10 to 15 years in a meme culture. And that's the thing about American politics is, I'm not a fan of 45 in the least, but I'm not a fan of 45. But the thing is, he leveraged meme culture to, get into the White House. And that's one thing Hillary didn't do, right? I got a photo of me and Hillary right behind me there too. And I got a photo of Obama and I got the fist bump. I was like, Mr. Obama, can I get the fist bump? He's like, sure. I'm like,
Where was that?
it was at a Democratic fundraiser. Basically, throw a little bit of money at these American politicians, and you get to meet them and get a photo. But that's the thing is, when Dark Brandon started hitting in the states, and like Kamala, like when the memes start turning in your tide. I mean, we live in a meme culture, And that's the thing is you can't predict memes. You know, you can only hope that they become a thing.
Oh, I wanted to ask you randomly. You've had you know, the hot ones. You've had the bomb hot sauce, right? How
Oh
hot
yeah,
is it?
it's troll sauce, dude. Well, so my wife and I, we go out almost every day to eat and whatnot. We go, you know, get a drink at the bar, then go to dinner. And we brought it out in a plastic bag, but we brought toothpicks. And we tell people, do you want to try this? And we dip the toothpick in. And there's a reason it's called the bomb, because when you taste it, three, two, one. Like, and I'm I used to love hot sauce, but you know, being my old age, I have stomach problems. And it really, there's a reason it's that show is fucking brilliant, by the way. You know, Sean Evans and his team do their homework with everybody. And the reason why it's brilliant is because whenever you see a celebrity, they've been given their press talking points at a junket and whatnot, right? Hot ones, you know, when you feed somebody that shit, you get the honest person out of them, right? You get the
Yeah.
real person, which is why it works. It's reality TV in a good way. But my wife and I, she again being from New Orleans, you know, we go to New Orleans a few times a year. We do Mardi Gras every year. We have a whole float, the whole 9 yards. And you know, we go out for a little bit of day drinking because when in Rome, and there's a hot sauce shop off Decatur, and we pop in. They have some samples, and they have like this one that's supposed to be the hottest sauce like ever, and you have to sign a fucking waiver for it, right? And I'm like, I've had a couple drinks. I'm like,
Yeah, I got this.
it sounds like a good idea. And so I sign up, I get a tasting of it. Next thing you know, I'm double down on the curb outside,
Oh
like,
no.
oh fuck, I got to get back to the hotel and throw up her shit. And but the problem was it was Mardi Gras, so the parades were like blocking our route. So I'm sitting there like watching the parade, like, yeah, I don't want any beads. I just have to go take a shit, you know, because the bathrooms in most places in New Orleans are terrible, especially off Bourbon. But if you ever go, there's a karaoke bar called Cat's Meow there. That's I basically have a residency there. Oh yeah, so real quick, the final thing about the comedy thing is I show up there and the manager comes out. He's like, "You're here all the time. I'm gonna give you a little package." He gives me this like basket. It's got like two t-shirts, good quality, with you know, Good Nights Comedy Club, established in 1984, and then some stickers. But there's like this VIP lanyard. I'm like, and he's gone. But I'm like, what is it? What does this mean? So this dude, I get like a free hand job in the green room at every show or something like. And so every time I go to I wear it. Every time I go to the comedy club and I hold it up to the bouncers, like, because they usually like frisk people or check their bags, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
we live in a volatile, divisive world. And I hold it up. And he's like, just get the fuck in there.
yeah.
And I just, you know, I walk up to like because it's will call, right? I walk up to the person with the tickets, and I'm like, and he's like, just knock it off. It's
Oh
becoming a
my
running
God.
gag. You know, I go to they have the same two bartenders all the time, and I go up to them. I'm like, you know, that scene in Wayne's World where he's like, backstage pass, right?
Finally, before we go, so you said you're going to be working on a game. Is that what you said?
I have a design, I have an IP, I have a name, I have a couple logos.
Are you heading it? Is what's your role? Can you say anything?
I would be the creative director.
Yeah, right.
So I never want to be CEO again for the rest of my life. That was exhausting. It gave me my first gray hairs down here. And you know, my whole thing is, you know, Joss Whedon, who's a friend of mine, told me don't sit at a table you can't walk away from. And the thing is, you know, I have an idea. I want to keep it small, stylized, contained,
Yep.
and the people that you know I'm considering working with, you know, a couple of them live in town. They've come to karaoke nights. And, you know, they say it's not show friends, it's show business, but there's a reason why Tom Hanks has worked with Steven Spielberg so much. Because when you're in the trenches with somebody, you want to be able to, you know, sing a duet with them of Time of My Life from Dirty Dancing, you know?
Yeah, well, 100%. Well, good luck with that. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. And
We'll
thank you for
see
your
where it
time, man.
goes. Yeah,
I
no problem,
appreciate
man.
your honesty. We laughed, we cried, we had fun, as you
Yeah,
said.
and you know, say hey to Skippy and all those jacked roos out there.
Thank you, brother. Have a good day. I
Take,
look forward to doing this again. Thanks, man.
take care, man. Thanks for having me.